There comes a time when life feels strangely unfamiliar. You wake up one morning, sit at the edge of your bed, and the world around you seems different. The conversations that once brought you excitement now feel heavy. The goals you used to chase no longer light a fire inside you. Even the small dramas that once hooked your attention seem to lose their grip. It's almost as if you've stepped out of a play you've been acting in for years. And for the first time, you're standing in the audience, watching it all unfold from a distance. This shift can be unsettling. You might wonder if something is wrong with you. You might even think, am I broken? Am I losing myself? But the truth is far more beautiful than that. What you're experiencing isn't depression, and it isn't numbness. It's the very first sign of awakening, the moment when your quantum consciousness, the deepest part of you, begins to stir and call you home. In that moment, you are no longer just the character in the story of your life. You become the observer, the silent presence behind the thoughts, behind the emotions, behind the endless push and pull of the world. And from this place, you begin to see with new eyes. It's like watching a river that you used to fight against. For so many years, you've been swimming upstream, struggling to control the current, to force things to go your way. But now, you find yourself stepping out of the water entirely, standing on the riverbank, simply watching. You realize the current was never your enemy. It was your teacher. At first, this shift can feel lonely. The world around you keeps spinning, just as it always has. People are still caught in their roles, still playing out their dramas, still chasing the next thing they believe will finally make them whole. And yet, here you are, no longer captivated by the same illusions. You see the game, but you're no longer trapped in it. This is the doorway to true freedom. It's the moment when the old layers of identity, the name you've been called, the roles you've played, the masks you've worn begin to fall away. They were never really you. They were just costumes you put on to survive, to fit into a world that demanded you be a certain way. And now, like old garments, they no longer fit. You begin to sense something vast and quiet inside you, a presence that has been there all along, waiting. It doesn't push or demand. It simply is. This presence doesn't need validation or applause. It doesn't need to prove itself or control outcomes. It's like the still surface of a lake, reflecting everything without judgment. From this space, you start to understand that awakening isn't about escaping the world or rejecting it. It's about seeing clearly. It's about realizing that you are not just a body moving through space, reacting to circumstances. You are the field of awareness itself, the invisible canvas on which life paints its colors. And here's the beautiful paradox: when you stop trying to fix or fight what is, life begins to flow with a grace you couldn't have imagined. The same conversations that once drained you now pass through you, like wind through an open window. The same problems that once seemed insurmountable no longer define you. You no longer need to swim upstream, because you've become the river itself. So if you're in this space right now, if life feels unfamiliar, if the things you used to care about no longer hold, meaning take a deep breath. Nothing is wrong with you. In fact, something very right is unfolding. This is the call of your quantum self, inviting you to step beyond the noise and into the truth of who you are. You are not losing yourself. You are remembering yourself. And when you truly remember, you don't just watch life happen. You become the loving awareness through which life flows. 1. A sense of separation from yourself. There comes a point in life when you no longer feel like you're fully inside it. It's as if you've stepped just a few feet back from everything you once called me. You might be sitting at your kitchen table, listening to the clinking of a spoon against a cup, hearing the sound of your own breath. And suddenly, it all feels distant. It's not that you're disconnected or cold. It's more like you've slipped into a quiet space, where you are both the listener and the one being listened to. In those moments, life feels strangely dreamlike. Conversations move around you like echoes in a vast room. People are talking, laughing, arguing, and yet, a part of you is simply observing, untouched by the chaos. You watch your own thoughts rise and fall like waves on an ocean. You hear the familiar voice inside your head telling stories about who you are, what you should do, what you should fear. But now, that voice doesn't feel like the truth. It feels like an old recording playing on a loop. For so many years, you believed you were that voice. You believed you were the story. It told the one who had to carry the weight of every mistake, every label, every expectation. But now, something deeper begins to stir within you. A quiet realization takes root. I am not this voice. I am not this story. It can feel disorienting at first, like looking into a mirror and not fully recognizing the reflection. Your name, your past, the roles you've played: mother, father, friend, worker, dreamer. They all start to feel like clothes you've worn for so long that you forgot you could take them off. These identities are not bad or wrong. They've simply grown too tight, like a coat that once kept you warm, but now feels heavy and restrictive. This sense of separation is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that you are waking up. Think of a butterfly struggling inside its cocoon. To the caterpillar, the breaking apart feels like the end. But to the butterfly, it's the beginning of flight. In the same way, this distance you feel between who you've been and who you truly are is not a loss. It's an opening, a necessary space that allows something greater to emerge. You may notice this shift in the smallest, most ordinary moments. Maybe you're driving to work, and suddenly you feel like you're watching the world pass by, as if it were a movie screen. Maybe you're having a conversation, and while words are coming out of your mouth, part of you is standing quietly in the background, simply observing. At first, you might resist this feeling. The mind doesn't like uncertainty. It clings to the familiar. Even if the familiar is painful, it will whisper, "Something is wrong with me. I need to go back to how things used to be." But deep down, another part of you knows the truth. It knows that what is falling away is not your essence. It's the mask you've been wearing. As you continue to witness your own thoughts and emotions without clinging to them, you begin to see how temporary they are. A thought rises, lingers for a moment, and then dissolves. An emotion swells like a storm cloud and then passes. You realize you don't need to fight or fix them. You only need to allow them to move through, like weather patterns across an open sky. This is where true freedom begins, not in controlling the storm, but in realizing you are the vast sky itself, untouched, unshaken, ever present. Over time, this space between you and your thoughts grows wider, gentler. You stop reacting to every trigger. You stop believing every fearful story your mind tells. And in that stillness, something extraordinary happens. You meet yourself, the real you, for perhaps the very first time. It's a quiet meeting. There are no fireworks, no grand announcements, just a subtle knowing, like the soft glow of dawn breaking after a long, dark night. You begin to understand that you were never the roles you played, never the labels others gave you. Those were just chapters in a much larger story. The real you is the one who has been watching all along, the timeless awareness that sees, that feels, that simply is. And as this realization deepens, the fear begins to fade. The need to cling to an identity, to prove yourself, to be understood. All of it starts to loosen its grip. Because when you know yourself as the quiet witness behind it all, you no longer need to fight for a place in the world. You finally understand that you are not separate from life. You are life itself, flowing through every moment, watching, learning, and becoming. And this understanding is where true healing begins. 2. The physical world is only a reflection. There comes a moment in this journey when you begin to notice something subtle, almost invisible. yet deeply profound. The world you see outside of you is not as solid, fixed, or separate as you once believed. It's like standing in front of a mirror and, for the first time, realizing that what you see is not the original source. It's only a reflection. For most of our lives, we are taught to believe that the physical world is the ultimate reality. The house we live in, the bills we pay, the relationships we build, the struggles we endure, they all seem so tangible, so unchangeable. We believe that life happens to us, and we must react, fight, and adapt to survive. But as your awareness deepens, something begins to shift. You start to catch glimpses of a greater truth. You begin to sense that the world outside is not separate from you. It's responding to you, reflecting back the energy you carry, like a lake reflecting the sky above it. This realization often comes quietly, in ordinary moments. Perhaps you think of a friend you haven't spoken to in years, and then the phone rings, and it's them. Maybe you're wrestling with a difficult decision, and suddenly, a stranger says a passing phrase that feels like the exact guidance you needed to hear. These are not coincidences. They are synchronicities, moments when the hidden threads of the universe become visible for just a heartbeat. At first, they might seem magical or strange, but in truth, they are natural. They are signs that your energy field, your inner world, is becoming more alive, more aligned, more in tune with the larger field of life itself. It's like realizing you've been living in a house with dirty windows all your life. You've been looking out and thinking the world was gray and cloudy. Then one day, you clean the glass. The light pours in, and you see the colors, the shapes, the beauty that was there all along. The world hasn't changed. You've simply cleared the lens through which you see it. This shift in perception also changes how you relate to challenges. In the past, you may have felt like a victim of circumstances. When something painful happened, you believed it was random or unfair. But now, you begin to understand that even difficulties are reflections. They are signals pointing you toward what needs to be healed within you. It's like standing in front of a mirror and seeing dirt on your face. You don't try to clean the mirror because you know the smudge isn't out there. It's here, on you. In the same way, when life shows you conflict, fear, or resistance, it's not about fixing the outside world. It's an invitation to turn inward, to tend to the source. As your awareness grows, you may also notice time behaving differently. Hours that used to drag now seem to pass in a blink. Or you may have moments where time seems to stretch open, where everything feels both suspended and alive. These experiences remind you that time, like the physical world, is not as rigid as it seems. It bends and shifts according to the state of your inner being. This can feel unsettling at first. The mind craves certainty. It wants the world to stay predictable, measurable, logical. But when you begin to see life as a reflection, you understand that logic is only one layer of reality. Beneath it flows a deeper, invisible current made of energy and thought. This is why two people can walk through the same day and have completely different experiences. One may see only problems and scarcity, while the other sees possibility and grace. It's not that the world itself changed, it's that their internal states are different, and so the reflection they receive is different. Imagine holding a glass of water. If the water is calm and still, it reflects the sky clearly. But if you stir it, shake it, disturb it, the image becomes distorted. Your inner world works the same way. When you are agitated or fearful, the reflection you see outside will be chaotic. When you are grounded and clear, life appears more harmonious. This doesn't mean you must control every thought or force yourself to be calm. It simply means learning to tend to your inner state with care and compassion. It means pausing long enough to notice what you are radiating into the field around you. As you embody this understanding, You stop blaming the mirror. You stop seeing the world as an enemy or an obstacle. Instead, you begin to treat it as a faithful messenger, a guide showing you where you are aligned and where you are out of tune. And here lies the freedom you've been seeking all along, the realization that you are not powerless. You are a co-creator. The world you see is not separate from the world you are. It is a reflection of the energy you bring to it, moment by moment. When you truly grasp this, you no longer chase after circumstances, hoping they'll change so you can finally be at peace. You turn inward. You nurture your inner world, knowing that when you do, the outer world cannot help but reflect the beauty, clarity, and love you've cultivated within. This is the quiet power of awakening. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It simply whispers. What you seek has been inside you all along. And as you listen, the reflection becomes clearer, until one day, you look at the world and finally see yourself shining back. 3. Becoming the neutral observer. There is a quiet turning point in the journey of awakening, a moment when you stop being swept away by the relentless tide of your own emotions and thoughts. It doesn't happen all at once. At first, you may only catch brief glimpses of it, like sunlight breaking through a storm cloud. But once you've experienced it, even for a breath, you can never go back to the way things were. For most of our lives, we believe we are our emotions, and we say, I am angry. Fear comes, and we declare, I am afraid. These feelings grip us so tightly that they seem to define who we are. The same is true with our thoughts. A voice in our head speaks, and we take its every word as truth, even when it's cruel or irrational. We live at the mercy of these inner storms, reacting to each wave as if we were powerless against it. But something remarkable begins to shift. As your awareness deepens, you start to notice that there is a space between you and what you feel. A moment of pause, subtle at first, where you realize, I am not this anger. I am not this fear. I am not this voice in my head. It's like sitting by the edge of a river and watching the water flow past. You see sticks and leaves drifting by on the current, but you don't leap into the river to grab them. You simply watch them move along, knowing they're not yours to keep. Your emotions are just like that, passing visitors, not permanent residents. At first, this kind of observation can feel strange, even impossible. The mind will protest, but this pain is so real. This worry is urgent. This sadness defines me. It will try to pull you back into the river, to convince you that you are drowning. But the more you practice staying on the riverbank, the stronger you become. You begin to see that feelings are not who you are. They are experiences moving through you. When you become the neutral observer, life changes in profound ways. Someone may say something hurtful, and instead of immediately reacting, you notice the heat rising in your chest. The urge to defend yourself. You watch it, breathe through it, and in that space of awareness, you are free to choose your response. You are no longer a puppet controlled by the strings of emotion. You are the one holding the strings. This doesn't mean you suppress or deny your feelings. Suppression is just another form of resistance. Being the neutral observer is different. It is a practice of allowing. You let every emotion come, stay for as long as it needs, and then leave on its own, like clouds drifting across the sky. No storm lasts forever. You don't need to chase the clouds or push them away. You simply let them pass. This way of being brings a deep sense of peace, not the peace that depends on everything going right in your life, but the peace that comes from knowing you are steady, even when the world is chaotic. It's the kind of peace that cannot be taken away, because it doesn't come from circumstances. It comes from recognizing your true nature as the one who sees, the one who witnesses, the one who simply is. Imagine sitting in a quiet room, watching a candle flicker in the darkness. The flame moves, bends, sometimes almost disappears. but the space around it remains untouched. Your awareness is like that space, vast, unchanging, always present. Emotions and thoughts are like the flame, constantly shifting. When you identify only with the flame, life feels unstable. But when you rest as the space itself, you discover a calm that no storm can disturb. Over time, you begin to notice this shift in every corner of your life. Conversations become more meaningful because you are no longer speaking from reactivity, but from clarity. Old patterns lose their grip because you see them for what they are, just waves rising and falling. Even your body feels different, lighter, as if it is no longer carrying the weight of every story, every reaction, every wound. Becoming the neutral observer doesn't mean you stop feeling. On the contrary, you may find that you feel even more deeply, but now you experience emotions fully, without being consumed by them. You allow joy to wash over you like sunlight, grief to move through you like rain, and anger to pass like a strong wind. You feel everything, yet you remain free. And this freedom is the essence of awakening. It is the realization that life is not something happening to you, but something unfolding through you. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds it. You are not the river. You are the witness standing quietly at its edge. When you know this in your bones, you stop clinging to every passing moment. You stop fighting your inner world. And in that surrender, you find a deeper strength than you ever imagined. This is the gift of becoming the neutral observer, the quiet, unshakable knowing that no matter what rises and falls within you, you are always more than the rise and fall. You are the stillness beneath it all, the awareness that watches, the presence that remains. 4. Discovering the scientific foundation of quantum consciousness. There comes a point on this journey when you begin to realize that awakening is not just a mystical idea or a poetic way of seeing life. It is rooted in something deeper, something that even science, at its most advanced levels, has begun to glimpse. For many of us, this realization is both thrilling and unsettling, because it challenges the very foundation of what we've been taught to believe about reality. From the time we were children, most of us were taught a simple, fixed story about the world. There is a physical universe made of matter and energy. The brain, through some mysterious process, creates consciousness. Thoughts and emotions, according to this story, are nothing more than the firing of neurons, a kind of chemical accident. In other words, mind comes after matter. We've been taught that who we are is nothing more than a body moving through space, destined to return to dust. But as quantum physics has evolved, this old story has begun to crack. At the smallest levels of existence, the level of atoms and subatomic particles, the rules of reality no longer behave the way we expect. Quantum experiments have shown something extraordinary: matter does not exist in a fixed state until it is observed. Particles exist only as possibilities, waves of potential, until a conscious observer interacts with them. It's as if the universe is waiting for us to look at it before deciding what form to take. Think about that for a moment. For centuries, we believed the world was solid and independent, a machine running on its own, whether we were here or not. But the quantum world tells a different story. It suggests that consciousness is not a byproduct of the physical world. It is the very thing that gives rise to it. Without consciousness, there is no definite reality. The observer and the observed are inseparable. This realization is not just a scientific curiosity. It has profound implications for how we live our lives. It means that you are not a powerless being trapped inside a mechanical universe. You are not simply a passenger on a predetermined ride. Instead, you are part of the very fabric that shapes what unfolds. Your awareness is not just looking at reality, it is actively participating in creating it. It's like realizing you've been in a dream all along. In most dreams, you're just a character moving through the story, reacting to what happens. But sometimes, You wake up inside the dream. You become lucid. Suddenly, you realize, I am the dreamer. The walls of the dream don't trap you anymore, because you understand they are made of your own mind. This is exactly what happens when you begin to understand quantum consciousness. You see that you are both the dream and the dreamer, both the painting and the painter, both the dance and the dancer. For some, this idea can feel overwhelming. The mind might resist it. After all, it's much easier to believe we are small and separate than to accept the responsibility that comes with being a creator. But take a deep breath and let this truth settle gently inside you. You have always been more than you were told. The universe is not out there, happening apart from you. It is happening through you. And even, in some mysterious way, as you, when you start to see life in this way, everyday experiences take on a new depth. That moment of synchronicity, when someone calls you, just as you were thinking of them, no longer feels like a coincidence. It feels like a natural reflection of the interconnected field you are part of. The emotions you carry, the beliefs you hold, the thoughts you repeat, they are not private. Invisible things, they are vibrations rippling out into the field, shaping what comes back to you. Science, in its own language, is beginning to confirm what ancient mystics have said for thousands of years. The material world is not the source of consciousness. Rather, consciousness is the ground from which the material world arises. This understanding doesn't diminish science. It deepens it. It bridges the gap between the measurable and the immeasurable, between the physical and the spiritual. Imagine looking at a movie on a screen. You can get lost in the story, forgetting that what you're seeing is just light projected onto a surface. You might laugh, cry, feel suspense or fear. But the moment you step back, you remember the images are not real in themselves. They are reflections of something deeper, the light, the projector, the source. In the same way, the events of your life are like that movie. They appear real and solid, but they are projections of your own inner state and the collective field we all share. This doesn't mean life is an illusion to be dismissed or ignored. It means life is a dance between the seen and the unseen, the manifest and the unmanifest. It means that what you nurture inside your thoughts, your feelings, your intentions matters profoundly, because it is from this inner world that the outer world takes its shape. As this understanding deepens, you begin to carry yourself differently. You move through life with a quiet reverence, knowing that everything you encounter is part of a shared creation. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What am I bringing into this moment?" You become curious rather than reactive, open rather than defensive, and perhaps most importantly, you begin to feel at home in a universe that once seemed cold and indifferent, because you no longer see yourself as separate from it. You see yourself as woven into its very fabric, a vital thread in an endless tapestry of becoming. This is the heart of quantum consciousness, the understanding that you are both the dreamer and the dream, both the question and the answer, both the observer and the observed. When you truly know this, not just in your mind, but in your bones, life itself becomes more fluid, more vibrant, more alive. You stop feeling like a small fragment lost in an endless universe and start realizing that you are the universe, awake and aware, experiencing itself through you. 5. The collapse of the old self. There comes a time in the journey of awakening when everything you thought you were begins to crumble. It can feel terrifying, confusing, even heartbreaking. The structures that once gave you a sense of identity, your achievements, your beliefs, your roles suddenly feel shaky and fragile, like a house built on sand. When your deeper awareness begins to rise, the old self doesn't simply disappear. It fights for survival. It whispers in the back of your mind, "You're losing control. You're falling apart. Something is wrong with you." These thoughts can feel so convincing, so urgent, that you may want to turn back, to cling to the familiar even if it's painful. But the truth is far more compassionate than those fearful whispers. Nothing is actually wrong with you. You are not breaking down, you are breaking open. What feels like chaos is really a profound process of transformation. The old identity, built from years of conditioning and survival, is dissolving to make room for your authentic self to emerge. Think of a forest after a wildfire. In the beginning, all you see is destruction ash, smoke, the remains of what once was. It can seem tragic and final, yet hidden beneath the soil, new seeds are awakening. Fresh shoots begin to rise through the ashes, bringing life back stronger than before. In the same way, the collapse of your old self is not the end of you. It is the clearing that allows the deeper truth of who you are to take root. For most of our lives, the ego has been our guide. It learned how to keep us safe by adapting to the expectations of others. It gathered rules from family, society, culture, and pain. It built walls and masks, saying, if I act like this, I'll be loved. If I hide this part of me, I'll be safe. These strategies were not wrong. They were necessary at the time. The ego was like an old, loyal guard, doing its best to protect you. But now, as your consciousness expands, those strategies no longer fit. They feel heavy, restrictive, outdated. The map the ego created no longer matches the territory you're walking in. And so, it begins to panic, like a frightened animal. It resists the changes you are going through. It will cling to old habits, old stories, even old suffering, because to the ego, familiar pain feels safer than the unknown freedom that lies ahead. This stage can feel like standing on a bridge between two worlds. Behind you is the life you've always known, the roles you've played, the beliefs you've carried. Ahead of you is a vast open space, full of possibility, but also uncertainty. The bridge itself can sway and shake. Some days you feel brave, ready to step forward. Other days you feel pulled back by fear, tempted to return to what's familiar. It's important to remember, you don't have to rush across this bridge. The journey is not about speed, but about trust. The collapse of the old self is a sacred process. Even the fear, even the resistance, is part of the unfolding. Your only task is to keep breathing, to keep watching, to allow what no longer serves you to fall away in its own time. There may be grief in this process. In many ways, it feels like losing someone you've known your whole life, except that someone is you. You might mourn the old dreams, the old versions of yourself, even as you know they are fading for a reason. Let yourself feel that grief. It is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of love for the person you have been. Slowly, as the old structures fall, a new spaciousness begins to emerge. It might come as a deep breath you didn't know you were holding, or a quiet sense of relief that you can finally stop pretending. This spaciousness is your true self, rising, not the self that must prove, perform, or protect, but the self that simply is. In this new space, you no longer need to control everything. You no longer need to cling to certainty. You begin to taste freedom, not the freedom of running away, but the freedom of standing fully in your own presence. The collapse of the old self can feel like an ending, but in reality, it's a profound beginning, like a caterpillar dissolving into a formless soup before becoming a butterfly. You are in the middle of a sacred metamorphosis. The ego may scream that you are lost, but in truth, you are being found. One day, you will look back on this time with gratitude. You will see that the breaking apart was actually a breaking open, that everything you thought was falling away was really making space for what has always been waiting beneath the surface, your authentic, limitless self. So when the fear rises, when the old voices try to pull you back, place a hand on your heart, and remember, this is not destruction. This is rebirth. You are not losing yourself. You are uncovering who you've been all along. 6. Stepping into conscious creation. There comes a moment, often quietly and unexpectedly, when you realize that you are no longer just drifting through life, reacting to whatever comes your way. Until now, you may have felt like a passenger on a train, watching the scenery pass by, believing the tracks were already laid and the destination fixed. But something within you begins to awaken a deep, unmistakable knowing that you are not just a traveler. You are also the one laying the tracks, the one shaping where the journey goes. This realization is both humbling and empowering. At first, it may feel overwhelming to accept that your thoughts, feelings, and inner state play such a vital role in shaping your external reality. For so long, you may have been taught that life happens to you, that luck, fate, or other people determine your experience. You were told to fight harder, to push, to force outcomes into place. But now, you begin to sense a quieter truth. Life is not responding to your effort or your words. It is responding to the energy you radiate beneath it all. Imagine walking into a room where two people are sitting in silence. Neither speaks, yet you immediately feel something. Maybe one person carries a heavy sadness, and you sense it without a single word being said. Maybe the other radiates warmth, and you find yourself softening in their presence. This is how the universe works on a much larger scale. It is always responding, not to what you say you want, but to the vibration you are sending out in every moment. This is why so many of us feel frustrated when our lives don't change. Even when we set goals or repeat affirmations, if the words you speak and the actions you take don't match the deeper energy within you, the outer world has no choice but to reflect what you are, not what you merely wish for. It's like planting a seed. You can stand over the soil every day, declaring, "I want roses." But if you planted a seed of thorns, no amount of wishing will change the plant that grows. The seed, like your inner vibration, determines what blooms. Stepping into conscious creation begins with this simple but profound understanding: you are a field of energy first, and a physical being second. Everything you experience in the outer world is a reflection of what is happening in your inner world. When you nurture your inner state, your thoughts, your emotions, for your intentions, you naturally begin to see shifts in your reality. This doesn't mean you must become perfect or happy all the time. It's not about forcing yourself to think positive or suppressing difficult feelings. In fact, true conscious creation starts with honesty. It begins with acknowledging where you really are, your fears, your doubts, for your hopes, and meeting those parts of yourself with compassion. As you do this, your frequency begins to rise naturally. You become like a tuning fork, vibrating more clearly, more coherently. The world around you starts to resonate with that clarity. People show up at just the right time. Opportunities flow in ways you could never have planned. The path ahead seems to unfold, not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. This is very different from the way we were taught to pursue life. Most of us were conditioned to believe that success comes through effort alone, that we must hustle, compete, and push until we make it. But conscious creation shows you a different way. It's not about pushing the river. It's about aligning with its flow. When you understand that you are the current itself, you stop struggling to control it. You simply direct your own energy with clarity and intention. There's a profound freedom in this way of living. Instead of trying to manipulate circumstances or people, you focus on the only thing you can truly shape: yourself. You become deeply present with your inner state, tending to it like a gardener cares for a beloved garden. When weeds of fear or anger appear, and you don't judge them, you gently pull them up. When seeds of gratitude and love begin to sprout, you nourish them. Over time, the garden of your energy flourishes, and the outer world reflects its beauty. Perhaps the most humbling truth of conscious creation is this: you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. If you carry a vibration of lack, the world will mirror lack back to you, no matter how much you chase abundance. If you radiate peace, even in the midst of chaos, you will find peace meeting you at every turn. Life cannot be fooled. It listens only to the energy beneath the surface. At first, this may feel daunting, but it is actually a gift. It means you don't have to control everything out there. You don't have to make the world bend to your will. Instead, you shift your focus inward, knowing that every moment you align with love, clarity, and authenticity. The universe responds in kind. This is the beginning of true power, not the power to dominate or control, but the power to create harmoniously with life itself. You are no longer a passive participant or a victim of circumstance. You are an artist painting with the colors of your own energy, a composer writing the music of your own experience. As this truth takes root, a quiet confidence emerges. You no longer need to beg the universe for what you desire. You simply embody it. And when you become the vibration of what you seek, the world has no choice but to reflect it back to you. This is conscious creation in its purest form, not a struggle, not a fight, but a dance between your inner being and the infinite field of life. A dance that begins, always, with who you are becoming in this very moment. 7. Living from presence instead of control. There comes a time when you grow weary of constantly trying to control life. For years, maybe decades, you've been holding the reins tightly, convinced that if you just tried harder, planned more carefully, worked more hours, worried more intensely, you could bend life to your will. And yet, no matter how much you've fought, things never quite turned out the way you expected. Even when you did everything right, life still surprised you, sometimes in painful ways. That's because control, as the mind imagines it, is an illusion. It's like trying to stop the ocean's waves with your hands. You exhaust yourself, but the tide keeps rising and falling, completely indifferent to your struggle. At some point, you realize you can't keep living like this. You can't keep clutching at every moment, every person, every outcome, as if letting go would mean losing everything. This realization often comes at a breaking point, when you've tried all you can and nothing seems to work. It can feel like defeat at first, like you've failed. But in truth, this is not failure. It's the beginning of freedom. Living from presence begins the moment you stop forcing and start allowing. It's when you take a deep breath and let go, not because you've given up, but because you finally see that life was never meant to be controlled in the first place. Imagine holding a bird in your hands. If you grip it too tightly, you harm it. If you hold it gently, it can breathe, it can move, it can rest. The same is true with life. Presence is the gentle holding, while control is the tight, suffocating grip. When you live from presence, you stop living in the past or racing toward the future. Instead, you meet each moment fully. As it is, you begin to see that this breath, this glance, this heartbeat is enough. Life stops being a problem to solve and becomes an experience to be lived. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you let go of control, life begins to organize itself in ways your mind could never have imagined. Relationships mend without endless arguments. Opportunities arise seemingly out of nowhere. Situations that once felt stuck begin to move. It's as if, the moment you step aside, a deeper intelligence steps in, one that has always been there, quietly guiding you. This intelligence doesn't shout, it doesn't force, it speaks in whispers, in nudges, in synchronicities that feel like grace. But you can only hear it when you are present. When the noise of striving and controlling falls silent, you begin to notice the subtle order woven through everything. At first, the mind will resist. It will panic, telling you, if I don't control this, everything will fall apart. But as you practice presence, you see the opposite is true. You notice how often your attempts to control actually created more chaos, more suffering. By trying to push the river in a certain direction, you were fighting against its natural flow. Now, by letting go, you allow the river to carry you. You begin to trust that it knows the way better than you do. Letting go doesn't mean becoming passive or careless. It doesn't mean you stop making decisions or taking action. It simply changes how you act. Instead of acting from fear or desperation, you act from clarity. Instead of forcing outcomes, you respond to life as it unfolds. Your actions become like ripples on a calm pond, gentle, deliberate, and powerful. There's a strength in this kind of surrender that the ego cannot understand. To the ego, letting go looks like weakness. It thinks, if I'm not in control, I'm powerless. But true power is not about control, it's about alignment. It's about standing so deeply rooted in the present moment that you become a clear channel for life to move through you. When you live this way, you discover a profound sense of relief. The constant tension in your body begins to soften. The endless chatter of your mind grows quieter. You no longer feel like you're carrying the world on your shoulders because you finally understand that you were never meant to. Life carries itself. There will still be challenges. Of course, living from presence doesn't mean everything becomes easy or painless, but it does mean you face each challenge differently. Instead of resisting what is, you meet it with openness. Instead of demanding that it be another way, you ask, what is this here to teach me? This shift changes everything. Suddenly, even difficulties feel purposeful. You begin to trust the process, even when you don't understand it. And in that trust, you find peace. Not the peace that comes from controlling life, but the peace that comes from dancing with it. In the end, living from presence is not about mastering life. It's about letting life move through you with grace. It's about remembering that you are part of a larger rhythm, a perfect order that doesn't need your constant interference. The more you release control, the more you realize that surrender is not the end of strength, it is the beginning of it. Because when you no longer fight against life, you finally have the energy to live it fully, moment by moment, breath by breath. 8. Seeing pain as liberation. There comes a moment when pain no longer feels like a punishment, no longer seems like something cruel and meaningless happening to you. At first, this shift is almost impossible to imagine. When life hurts, when you are standing in the wreckage of what you thought was certain, all you can feel is the raw ache. The mind screams, why me? Why now? What did I do to deserve this? And in those moments, pain feels like an enemy. You must fight or escape. I know this feeling well. There were times in my own life when the weight of grief seemed too much to bear, when losses stacked so high that I could barely breathe. In those dark nights, it felt like life had turned against me, like everything safe and familiar had been stripped away. And yet, looking back now, I see those moments differently. They were not the end. They were the opening. Pain, as unbearable as it feels, is often the very thing that cracks us open, so the light can reach places we've kept hidden. It is not here to destroy you. It is here to reveal you. When you begin to see this, something softens. Instead of labeling every difficult experience as bad, you start to approach it with quiet curiosity. You start to ask, what is this showing me? What part of me is being called to grow, to release, to transform? Loss becomes a doorway, not a dead end. Consider a seed buried beneath the earth. In order for it to grow, it must first break apart. The shell that once protected it must split open, which from the seed's perspective might feel like death, but in truth, it is the beginning of life. The breaking is necessary for the sprouting. Our pain works the same way. The grief, the heartbreak, the disappointments, they are signs that something old is falling away so something truer can be born. Every tear you've shed has been watering the soil of your becoming. Every scar you carry is proof that you've been reshaped by life's relentless invitation to evolve. This doesn't mean you must rush to find the lesson in every tragedy. Healing cannot be forced. It happens in its own time. Like the slow unfurling of a flower, there will be moments when the pain is simply pain, when all you can do is breathe and survive. That, too, is sacred. But even in the deepest sorrow, a quiet knowing begins to grow beneath the surface. This, too, will serve me. This, too, will pass. When you stop fighting pain as if it were your enemy, you begin to see its strange gifts. It strips away illusions, revealing what truly matters. It humbles you, softens you, makes you more compassionate. It shows you the depth of your own resilience, the strength you never knew you had until life required it. Often, it is only through loss that we learn to love without clinging. It is only through grief that we learn to cherish what is here now. Knowing how fragile it all is, pain teaches us presence. It teaches us to let go of the stories we've told ourselves about how life should be, and to open our hands to life as it is. I have met people who carry deep wounds, people who have lost children, homes, health, dreams, and though their hearts still bear the marks of those losses, there is a kind of beauty in them, a tenderness that cannot be faked. Their eyes shine with a quiet wisdom that only comes from having walked through fire and survived. When you allow pain to move through you, instead of resisting it, something extraordinary happens. The very thing that once felt like it would break you becomes the thing that remakes you. You are no longer the same person. And that is the point. The old self, with its rigid beliefs and fragile ego, cannot survive the fire. It must fall away so that the truer, freer self can emerge. This is why pain can feel so disorienting. It is the death of who you thought you were. But beyond that, death lies rebirth. One day, you will look back on the moments that felt unbearable and see them as turning points. You will recognize that each heartbreak was a teacher, each loss a guide. You will understand that what was taken from you was never truly yours to begin with. And what remained was what mattered most, your unshakable essence. Seeing pain as liberation doesn't make it easy. It doesn't erase the ache or the tears, but it gives meaning to the journey. It helps you hold your suffering with gentleness, like holding a wounded bird. You no longer see yourself as cursed or forsaken. You see yourself as someone being reshaped by love, even when that love feels fierce and unrecognizable. In time, the pain will ease, the wounds will close, and in their place, you will find a strength so deep, so quiet, that it can only be forged in the fire of loss. You will stand taller, not because life spared you, but because you walked through the storm and discovered that you were never truly alone. And when the next wave of sorrow comes, as it inevitably will, you will meet it differently. Not with fear, but with trust, not as an enemy, but as a sacred messenger, whispering, "You are ready to be born again." 9. Stabilizing and sustaining the new state awakening is often spoken of as a grand arrival, a moment when everything changes and you finally see life clearly. And yes, there is a beauty in that first glimpse of truth. It's like the sun breaking through after a long, dark storm. For a while, you may feel light and free, as if nothing could ever shake you again. But awakening, as profound as it is only the beginning. The real journey is learning to live from that awakened place, to stabilize and embody it in the midst of a world that has not changed. This is where many people falter, not because they are weak or unworthy, but because the old world is still very persuasive. The habits, roles, and patterns you've carried for years don't vanish overnight. They linger, like echoes of a song you used to know by heart. If you are not grounded, those echoes can pull you back into old ways of being before you even realize it. It's like climbing a mountain, and reaching a breathtaking viewpoint. In that moment, you see the vastness of the landscape, and you know it's real. But if you don't build a strong footing, the next strong wind can knock you off balance, and you might tumble back down to familiar ground. Awakening gives you the vision. Stabilizing it gives you the strength to stay there. The key to this stability is daily practice. Not practice in the sense of rigid rituals or spiritual performance, but in the simple, consistent acts of returning to yourself. Some days, that practice might be sitting quietly in the morning, breathing deeply, and remembering who you are before the world tells you who to be. Other days, it might be pausing in the middle of chaos to notice your heartbeat, to soften your shoulders, to whisper inwardly, "I am here. I am present." These practices are like anchors. They hold you steady when the waves of life get rough. They remind you that you are not the storm, you are the vast ocean beneath it. Stabilizing your new state also means becoming aware of what pulls you off center. Old patterns have a way of creeping back in when you're tired, stressed, or distracted. Maybe it's the voice of self-criticism that you thought you'd silenced. Maybe it's the compulsion to please others at the expense of your own truth. Maybe it's the fear that if you don't control everything, everything will fall apart. When you notice these patterns rising, don't meet them with anger or shame. That only feeds them. Instead, meet them with gentle awareness. See them for what they are, old echoes, old habits, and then breathe. Choose again. Every moment offers you that choice to fall back into the familiar or to stand firm in the new. This is why awakening is not a one-time event, but an ongoing relationship with yourself. It's like learning to walk again after years of crawling. At first, you may stumble often, you may fall, but each time you get back up, your legs grow stronger. Over time, walking becomes natural. In the same way, the more you practice returning to presence, the more natural it becomes to live from that state. It helps to remember that stabilization is not about perfection. You will have days when you feel deeply connected and aligned, and other days when you feel lost or reactive. This is normal. The goal is not to stay in a perfect state forever, it's to keep returning, again and again, no matter how many times you drift away. Think of it like tending a fire. If you neglect it completely, the flames die out. But if you add just a little wood each day, the fire stays alive, glowing steadily. Your awakened state is that fire. Daily practices like meditation, reflection, movement, or simply breathing with awareness are the logs that keep it burning. As you stabilize this inner state, you'll notice something remarkable. The world around you may still be chaotic, but it no longer controls you. You can walk through noise without being swallowed by it. You can face challenges without losing your center. You carry your calm with you, like a quiet flame inside your chest. This inner stability also begins to reshape the outer world. People will feel it in your presence. Even if they can't name it, they'll sense the peace you radiate. And some will be inspired to find that same peace within themselves. This is how awakening ripples outward, not through preaching or convincing, but through living as a steady, grounded example of what's possible. In the end, stabilizing your new state is an act of love. Love for yourself, because you deserve to live free from the weight of old patterns. Love for the world, because when you are steady, you bring clarity and compassion to those around you. Awakening is the spark, but stabilization is the fire that warms the whole house. And with each small, daily choice to return to yourself, you strengthen that flame until it becomes unshakable, no matter what storms may come. 10. Recognizing that everything is a reflection. There comes a quiet but life-changing realization on this path. Nothing in your external world is truly separate from you. The events, relationships, and circumstances you encounter are not random occurrences or punishments handed down by some distant force. They are reflections mirrors, showing you the frequency you are carrying within. At first, this idea can be difficult to accept. It is far easier to believe that life is something happening to you, shaped by other people, luck, or fate. When something painful occurs, the natural instinct is to look outward for someone or something to blame. We want to fix the outer situation, to argue with it, to push against it until it bends to our will. But when you begin to truly awaken, you start to see the deeper truth. The outer world is like a mirror. If you stand in front of a mirror and see that your hair is messy, you don't reach out to fix the reflection. You adjust yourself, and the image naturally changes. Life works the same way. Trying to change external circumstances without tending to your inner state is like trying to clean the mirror without ever touching what it reflects. This understanding is both liberating and challenging. It gives you incredible power because it means you are not a victim of life's randomness. You are the point of origin. At the same time, it asks you to take full responsibility for your energy, your thoughts, and your emotions. Taking responsibility does not mean blaming yourself for everything that happens. It's not about shame or guilt. It's about recognizing that what shows up in your life is a feedback system, a reflection of what is happening inside you. If the reflection is painful, it's an invitation to look inward with compassion and curiosity. Imagine walking into a room filled with people. You're feeling peaceful and centered, and you notice how others seem to respond with warmth and ease. On another day, you walk into the same room, feeling anxious or defensive, and suddenly the energy feels heavy and tense. It's the same room, the same people, but the way they reflect back to you shifts depending on the vibration you're radiating. Life is like this on a larger scale. Your inner state acts like a signal, continuously sending messages into the field of existence. That field then responds with experiences that match your signal. If you are radiating scarcity, you will find situations that reinforce lack. If you are radiating abundance, you will notice opportunities and synchronicities appearing with surprising ease. This is why inner work matters so deeply. You cannot always control the events that arise in life, but you can choose the energy you bring to them. That energy shapes what unfolds next. It's tempting, especially when something difficult happens, to try to smash the mirror. We want to fight the outer world, to fix it directly, but this only creates more struggle. The true path of transformation begins inside, when you tend to the root. The beliefs, patterns, and unhealed wounds within you naturally shift what is reflected outside. Consider a relationship that feels stuck or full of conflict. You might spend years trying to change the other person, pleading with them to act differently. But the moment you shift your own energy, perhaps by setting boundaries, softening your heart, or healing old wounds, the dynamic begins to change. Sometimes the relationship transforms beautifully. Sometimes it falls away because it no longer matches your new vibration. Either way, the shift begins within you. Recognizing life as a reflection is not about denying reality. It's about seeing reality more clearly. It allows you to move through the world with a sense of empowerment and grace. Instead of reacting blindly, you pause and ask, what is this showing me about myself? What frequency am I broadcasting in this moment? Over time, this practice brings deep peace. You stop wasting energy on trying to control everyone and everything around you. You realize you don't need to fix the mirror. You only need to bring yourself back into alignment again and again. There's a profound freedom in this. It means you can meet life with open hands instead of clenched fists. You can see challenges as feedback, not as punishments. Even when something painful appears, you know it is here to show you where healing is needed. This shifts you from feeling powerless to feeling purposeful. One of the most humbling truths of this journey is that every interaction is a reflection of who you are in that moment. The anger you see in another may be echoing the anger you've buried within. The love and kindness you receive may be a mirror of the love you've allowed yourself to give. In this way, life becomes a teacher, always showing you where you are aligned and where you are not. And so, the question changes. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What is this reflecting about me?" This question invites growth, humility, and deep transformation. As you live this way, you begin to notice a subtle but profound shift. The world no longer feels like a series of random events. It feels like a dialogue, a dance between your inner being and the outer field. When the reflection is beautiful, you feel gratitude. When it is painful, you bring compassion and a willingness to grow. In the end, recognizing that everything is a reflection doesn't make life easier, but it makes it clearer. You understand that the only true place of power is within you. By tending to your inner world, you naturally transform the outer world. And as you continue to take responsibility for your own signal, you become the source of harmony, love, and peace, not just for yourself, but for everyone who encounters you. The mirror no longer controls you, because you have learned to be the light that it reflects. 11. Love as the highest frequency. There is a quiet, transformative truth that reveals itself at the deepest point of the journey. Love is not something you chase, earn, or even give and receive. Love is a state of being, a frequency that you are. This love is not the fleeting romance we see in movies, nor is it the conditional affection that says, "I will love you if you meet my expectations." It's something far greater, more vast, and more constant. It is the thread woven through all of existence, the invisible current that connects every living thing. When you begin to live from this frequency, everything changes, not because you force it to, but because love naturally transforms whatever it touches. Fear begins to dissolve. Old wounds that you've carried for years start to soften and heal. The defenses you built to protect yourself slowly fall away, because you no longer need them. Living from love feels like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. It is a gentle warmth in the center of your chest, a knowing that you are safe, a whole, and deeply connected to life itself. When you rest in this state, you no longer have to try to awaken. You realize that you are the awakening. The very presence of love is the most awakened state there is. Think of sunlight streaming through a window. The light doesn't judge what it touches. It doesn't choose to shine on some things and not others. It simply shines, and by doing so, it illuminates and warms everything in its path. This is what love does when it flows freely through you. It brings clarity without effort. It brings healing without struggle. It reveals beauty where once you only saw brokenness. When you are aligned with love, you stop seeing others as enemies or obstacles. You begin to understand that everyone, even those who hurt you, is moving through their own layers of pain and confusion. You see beyond their behavior to the truth beneath it, the same truth that lives in you. From this perspective, forgiveness ceases to be an obligation. It becomes a natural response. This does not mean you allow harm or stay in unhealthy situations. Love is not weakness or self-sacrifice. True love has boundaries. Just as the ocean has a shore, it is strong, clear, and deeply rooted. But even as you walk away from certain people or situations, you do so without hatred in your heart. You release them with peace, knowing that separation, too, can be an expression of love. Fear cannot survive in the presence of this kind of love. Fear thrives on division and illusion. It whispers, "You are alone. You are not enough. The world is against you." Love speaks in a different voice. It says, "You are connected. You are whole. You are part of something vast and beautiful." And as love's voice grows louder, the voice of fear begins to fade into the background, until one day, it no longer controls you. From this place, life begins to feel different. You no longer need to manipulate or control circumstances. You no longer chase external validation or run from discomfort. Instead, you move through the world with a sense of quiet grace. Challenges still arise, but you face them with a heart that is open rather than clenched. You meet life as it is, rather than as you wish it to be. In the frequency of love, awakening is no longer a distant goal you strive toward. It becomes the natural state of your being. The endless seeking, the constant striving to fix yourself, begins to fall away. You understand that there was never anything fundamentally broken about you. What seemed broken was only the fog of fear, now dissolved by the clear light of love. This shift is subtle at first. You may notice it in small moments, a gentle breath during a difficult conversation, a sudden wave of compassion for someone you once resented, a quiet joy in the simplest things, a cup of tea to a bird outside your window, the warmth of sunlight on your skin. As you continue to live from this frequency, you begin to see the ripple effects. People feel different around you, not because you are trying to change them, but because love naturally harmonizes the space it enters. Like tuning forks vibrating in unison, the energy of love invites others to rise to their own highest frequency. And perhaps the most profound change happens within yourself. The endless internal battles, the judgment, the self-criticism, the fear of not being enough begin to dissolve. You no longer need to fight yourself. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone. You realize that love was never something you had to earn or deserve. It was always there, quietly waiting for you to notice. It is the essence of who you are. In this state, there is nothing to attain, nothing to strive for. Awakening stops being a goal and becomes your natural way of existing. You simply live, breathe, and move as love itself. And when you forget, as we all do, you return again and again, as many times as it takes, because love never leaves you. It waits patiently, like the sun behind the clouds, ready to shine, the moment you remember to let it through. When you live in this highest frequency, life becomes less about trying to change the world and more about embodying the truth that has always been here. You are the love you've been searching for. You are the light you've been chasing. And by being that love, you awaken not just for yourself, but for everyone whose life you touch. Living as the embodiment of quantum consciousness awakening is not a finish line you cross, nor a prize you earn after years of striving. It is not about becoming someone new or better. Awakening is a return, a gentle, profound return to the essence that has always been there, quietly waiting beneath all the noise and stories you've carried. From the very beginning, beneath every role you've played, every name you've been given, and every belief you've clung to, there has been something constant, unchanging, and whole. This is your true self, the awareness that has been watching your entire life unfold, like a vast sky holding every passing cloud. When you awaken, you don't create this self, you simply remember it. And in that remembering, a great weight lifts. You no longer feel compelled to seek perfection in the world outside you. You no longer chase validation, success, or love as if they were missing pieces that could make you whole. Instead, you realize that you are already whole. You become the source rather than the seeker. From this space, life stops feeling like a series of battles to win or problems to solve. You no longer see things as happening to you or against you. Instead, you begin to understand that life is happening through you. Each moment becomes a dance between your inner state and the infinite field of energy that surrounds you. When you embody this truth, you stop trying to force the outer world into alignment. You understand that it will naturally reorganize itself to reflect the truth of your inner being. Just as a calm lake reflects the sky above, your external life begins to mirror the love, presence, and clarity you cultivate within. Living this way does not mean challenges disappear. Storms will still come, just as they always have. But now, you meet them differently. Instead of resisting or clinging, you respond with presence and trust. You understand that even the storms have purpose, that they, too, are part of the dance. It's like walking through a forest at night with only a lantern. You can't see the entire path, but you trust each step as it comes. You know that the light will always reveal what you need to see in this moment. That trust allows you to keep moving forward without fear, even when the future remains unseen. To live as the embodiment of quantum consciousness is to live as the signal, not just the receiver. You no longer wait for life to bring you what you desire. You become the vibration of what you seek. If you wish to experience peace, you become peace. If you long for love, you live as love. This is not about pretending or forcing positivity. It's about aligning so deeply with your authentic self that the outer world has no choice but to reflect it back to you. And in that alignment, you begin to see the profound interconnectedness of all things. You realize that the people you meet, the challenges you face, the opportunities that arise, all of them are part of a larger tapestry, woven together by the same field of consciousness that lives within you. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe, experiencing itself in human form. This is the great paradox of awakening. You awaken not just to see the light, but to become the light. You no longer stand outside of life. Observing from a distance, you merge with it fully, bringing presence and love to everything you touch. Your very being becomes a blessing, a quiet offering to the world around you. When you live this way, you stop asking, "When will the world change?" Instead, you ask, "How can I embody the change I wish to see?" And as you embody it, the world begins to shift naturally, not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. So, as you continue on this journey, remember, this awakening is not a destination. It is an ongoing practice of returning to yourself, moment by moment, breath by breath. There will be days when you forget and days when you remember. That is okay. What matters is that you keep coming back. You are not just the observer of your life. You are the creator. And you have not awakened simply to witness the light. You have awakened to be the light. Carry that light with you into the ordinary moments, the conversations, the struggles, the laughter, the tears. Let it guide you, steady you, and shine through you. And as it does, the world around you will reflect it, like countless mirrors catching the glow of a single flame. You are not here to chase the light. You are here to become it. And in becoming it, you will see that you were never separate from it at all.